In this session, we are going to talk about filtering the data in Tableau. So why do we really need to filter the data? Right? Whenever I am interested in performing some kind of analysis on a subset of data, I want to narrow my focus. I don't want to look at the whole data, right? Or I want to go more and more into detail. I want to dig the data more details and I want to get a much better clarity and picture about it. All these are the purposes, or any one of them could be the purpose for me to really get into the filtering of the data. So in Tableau, the filtering occurs at various levels, different kinds of mechanisms to filter your data. So overall itself, if I want to limit the scope of my analysis, don't look at the whole data, I want to look only at the subset of the data itself. Then I can do the filtering at the data source level itself. Instead of extracting the whole data, I can pull only a part of it. So generally, these are called as data source filters. And these data source filters, they have to be applied before any other filter can be applied on the data. They are the first to be applied because they are limiting the scope of the entire data. Then the other set of filters that I have, extract filters. So basically, once I have extracted the data from the data source to a TDE file, instead of pulling all the data into the extract, we are pulling only a subset of the data. If the original data source itself was filtered, then the TDE also will be a filtered one, right? But if the original was not filtered, but still as a part of the extract, I can filter the data and get only the subset of the data. So two major layers. One, I can apply the filter at a data source layer itself. Two, I can apply the filter at the extract layer. Now, so what are those two things? Probably if I am putting it onto my data here, right? If I am putting it here, one, when I am connecting to this data source, right? This is the data source. Here I can apply a filter, right? Right now there are 4,248 records. So I can do the filter, let's say market wise, right? I click on the market and let's say I want only the central, east and the west. So I don't want the south. So the records became 3,576. So this is the data source filter, right? So this particular filter I can very well remove and immediately I get my full data. Whereas when we are doing an extract from this particular data, right, I come here. So this particular data, I can even do the extract. When I am doing an extract, if I don't do anything and say extract, I'll get the whole data. Otherwise, I can put my own filter. So my original data source is having the data, but the extract will not have the full data. Then a few more places where we can apply the filter. Let's say I am dragging and dropping any of these things, any of these dimensions or measures into the filter. Now this is one more place where I can apply the filter. I'm dragging and dropping the data or the dimensions or the measures from my data window to the filter shell. There is opportunity to filter because here I can select one or more, and probably here I can even keep these things, or probably I can select this and say exclude. So either I can keep or exclude one or more different sets of data here. So that is a process of filtering. And probably any of the fields here, right click, and here I can even, 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 right click, and here I can right click and I can, oh here we don't have the filter. Alright. So otherwise I can, let's say I have pulled, okay, let's do like this. Let me pull the market into the rows here. Now I have got this. Now once I get it, okay, here, right, once I have got my rows out here, I can do a filter or I can say show quick filter. In the quick filter, I get some kind of things like this. I get either a drop down or a checkbox. So they come in the form of control. So they give me the ability to dynamically change the filter as well. Change the location, change the values that can be displayed. So probably if I deselect all and I select only central and east. So that is what comes as a part of my display out here. So different kinds of filters that are there. Any of the options that we are selecting, if we are looking at here, though I did not add a filter here, I did a right click and a quick filter here, but we see a filter comes up in this filter shell. So here we have the option to define the filter, and depending on whether the field that we are filtering, that we are using for filter is discrete or continuous, the next steps will actually differ, right? Or whether it is a dimension versus a measure. So based on what field you are trying to do the filtering, dimension or a measure. So how to apply the filter differs drastically based on these. Probably if I have to look at, initially let me look at filtering based on the discrete elements, generally represented with a blue color. So there we have an option. Now in this example, I am filtering based on the market. Right, in this blue, I am filtering based on the market. So I am getting an option to select individual values. I can keep them or I can exclude them. So that is what I am getting as a part of the filtering process. Right, if you select, again let me remove this here. Right, so let me not have it out here. So let me simply remove it off. Now the market, let's say I am dragging it into the filter. There are a few things. One, it is giving me an option to select one or more. I can keep or I can exclude those elements. But apart from that, I am seeing 4 tabs here. General, wildcard, condition, top. So this list comes general, wildcard, condition filter, and top few elements filter. This is exclusively for discrete data. If you are dropping a continuous field here, the filter elements are different, and you can filter any of these based on any of these criteria. At the bottom you have a summary which is clearly telling you all the options that you are selecting. Probably I say central and east. Right, I'll say I want to include central and east. So the select is saying the field is market, selection is 2 out of 4 values. So the selection is saying 2 out of 4 values from this list are selected. So in the general tab, so it is allowing you to select an item from the list. If you want to include it, you can include. If you want to exclude, you can exclude. So that is what goes as a part of the general tab. Whereas in the wildcard tab, you are actually matching the string values. When you want to do a wildcard match, you are matching the string values with either contain or the string values that begin with or start with or that end with, or some kind of exact value match. Some kind of wildcards are what we are using. Probably if you come to this wildcard, you are seeing I want to match a value that is starting with, ending with, exactly matching whatever the string that I am typing here. So even that kind of a match I can very well bring out. Then in the conditions tab, it is asking us to write a rule. Condition based on any formula, right? Based on some kind of aggregation of any other fields. We are creating a rule, and where that, if you say here, okay, by field, where we are saying any of these fields, let's say I want to say profit, the total profit, right, or the average profit or anything greater than 1000, right? I really want to filter out only that much. Now I get a new filter altogether. Right now, if I am looking at number of records, it is telling me only 2200 records. So I am filtering based on some additional parameters here. The total profit should be greater than 1000. Only those things I am including. So the filter is getting applied at different layers. Then if I am saying top, I am simply saying the top 10. Probably if you look at here, I can put top or bottom. Instead of 10, I can change it to any other number. So I can simply select the top few items or bottom few items. So all these filters I can very well extract, or I can very well execute and retrieve the values accordingly. Now, if I am doing, instead of a discrete element here, if I am going for a continuous field, let's say profits or sales, if I want to do a continuous field, the filter based on that, the options that I am going to get are completely different. Let me try that. So I'll not put market as a part of the filter. Let's say I put sales as a part of filter. Now I am getting a different set altogether. I am getting all values, sum, average, count, minimum, maximum, standard deviation, variance. So these are the different elements that I am getting for filter. Right, in all values, it is more like individual values. So if I say here, okay, I'll select all values and I simply say, okay, keep for that sales. So the number is between 17 and 912. So what I can say, instead of 17 and 912, I say 100 and 912. Right? Keep only the range of values 100 and 100 to 912. Or I can say at least, at most, any of these things. So obviously I get a filter that is applied. My data source will still contain this, but when I come here, and now when we look at the sales that are there, the number should typically change. Right, the sales, the total sales that we have, now is showing me, if I drag this sales here, it is showing me 7,46,000 or 746,560. Right, 746,560. But when I go back into the filter, right, when I go back again into the sales here, go to the filter, show quick filter. In the sales, instead of 100, if I put right from 17 itself, my number is becoming 819,811. So when the filter was applied, the value was slightly lesser. Now you could clearly see, let's say I put only above 500 or above 500, let's say I want to put from 501 onwards. When I am applying the filter, the summation is only 201,000. So which is a clear indication that filter, here the filter that is getting applied is on each and every individual value. Now, the same logic, if I am resetting it and applying, then again it is showing, okay, and now I want it for the whole data. So when I am applying it, again the old values are typically getting applied. Now, in some cases, I can apply the filter which is purely based on aggregation. Means I'll apply a filter based on the sum, not individual values, based on average, based on minimum or maximum or standard deviation, any such kind of stuff. Right? Probably let me try it again. Pull out the things across. Now I am pulling the sales again. I'll say I'll want to do it on the sum. Okay. Now the sum is anywhere between this and this. Now this is only one single value. Right. So I want, let's say, I'll take the market into the rows. So these are the numbers. Now this is where I want to do sales sum. I want, so it is lying between 103,000 to 272,000. So I want to put anything above 200,000. So it is showing only central and west because those are the ones that have crossed 200,000. So I can do this kind on the sum, average, minimum, maximum based on the level of the detail that is being shown as a part of the view. So it is more and more interactive from that particular dimension. So you are getting the option to filter the continuous variables based on various things. You can specify a starting range, ending range, both. All these kinds of stuff you are able to provide to the data. Similarly, this is a continuous data that you have tried to filter. Now let's say I want to filter the date field. Okay, let me drag the date. I want to filter the date field. Now we have so many options. Relative date, range of dates. So different kinds of options are there. Relative date is more specific to today. So I say last 3 months, last 6 months. So that becomes a relative date. Right? Yesterday, today, tomorrow, everything related to today. Or I can very well specify the anchor relative to. By default it will be today, but I can show with any date. But with respect to that date, it will talk about the days, last so many days, next so many days, etc. Quarters, months, years, everything with respect to an anchor, we can get the relative date. But when I say range of dates, I can give the start date and the end date, or anywhere in between the two. I can very well extract the set of values. Similarly, I can specify the start date, end date, any of these things. Right? Okay. Then any other filters that we are applying, we can specify any of these things. The part of the date, year, month, day, combination, month and year, month, day, year, all these kinds of combinations based on which I can do a filter. Individual dates and time. So you can specify a particular date, and on that day whatever are the values, they are going to be displayed. One single values or set of values. Okay, I want 2nd of Jan and 15th of Jan, some such kind of specific dates I want. Then I can very well enter the values using the individual dates. And the final option that I had was the count. So it is allowing you to filter based on the distinct count of date values that are there in the data. So all these kinds of options are there to filter your data based on the date. So like this, with the filter we have so many such kind of options which can really help us to extract or create a subset of our data. So on any field, just by right clicking on it, we can get a quick filter. Right now on this field, market, right click on it, I get a show quick filter. And depending on whether it's now on the same sum field, sales field, I get a show quick filter. But the moment I get a filter here, because this is continuous, I get it as a range. Because market is discrete, I get it as a list of values. And the filters can be added even to the context as well. Right? Or the filters can be shown for all the values in the database, all the values in the context, or even based on the other filters. And what we see as we move along is applying a filter can really cause a multi-pronged look at the data. I can dig it into more and more details. I can aggregate, I can slice, dice, finally do the analysis at a broadest level, narrowest level. I can really play around with the data, try to identify as many patterns as possible from the data, and that too in a very quick time frame. So we have to really be comfortable with the usage of filters so that we can take our analysis and visualization of the data to the next dimension. All right. So thanks a lot for listening to this session. Thank you very much.